Hello, happy Sunday night. I was working on posting the verse of the week for our upcoming lesson, which is lesson 4. We're starting in Isaiah 42 and going through Isaiah 53. And I was thinking about how I met someone this past weekend, who told me that he has Isaiah 42:16, a verse that is part of our lesson for this week, as a theme verse in his life right now. And I told him I was teaching Isaiah, and he told me a little bit of his story, how he and his wife didn't know what to do with regard to a big move, and two separate people brought this verse to him. And he quoted the verse for me, and it sounded so lovely, but I didn't really retain what he had said and what the verse exactly had said, because we were eating breakfast tacos and I just discovered how good the green sauce really was, and my brain was highly occupied with the food right at that moment. But I did remember which verse. And so when I started preparing this week's lesson, I looked it up. Here it is. I will lead the blind by a way they do not know. In paths they do not know, I will guide them. I will make darkness into light before them and rugged places into plains. And these are things I will do, and I will not leave them undone. That's Isaiah 42:16, and I read it from the NASB. Well, it wasn't quite as warm and fuzzy as I had expected. I mean, God is speaking here, but if this verse were, if I felt that it was for me, then I would have to wonder, why is God calling me blind? And why take me on a way that I do not know? And it sounds like there's darkness and rugged terrain that I have to contend with too. So just to, step back from that a little bit, we might ask, if this is ancient writing written for people at the time, then how can it be about someone now or for someone now? Well, it was written for people at the time. A few verses later, God is reprimanding Israel and calling them blind. And this whole section of Isaiah is about God bringing the people of Israel, God's people, back from exile. And so we know the original subject of the verse is blind Israel. The people of God who didn't obey God and got themselves sent into exile in the first place. And that is the original meaning of this verse. Israel is blind, and God is going to take them by a way that they do not know. Well, that made it look different to me, because yes, it feels bad to be called blind, and no one wants to go by a way they do not know. But, Israel is already blind. They are in exile at this point. They're not in a good situation. And so, this way at least, they have someone to lead them. And they don't know the way, but they need to escape from where they are. So, better to go by the way they do not know and escape than stay in the bad situation they're in. And so, thinking about, what could this verse mean to my new friend, to me? I know there are areas in my life that I am definitely blind, in the sense that I don't know the right way to go. And, I don't know if there is one right way. And in some of those situations, I know there's not just one right way. And I'm just muddling along. I'm trying to do my best. I'm trying to figure out my health and raise my kids and know how to, I don't know, pay my taxes. There's always something to try to figure out, and to try to figure out the right way, and to try to advise your children well, or work with a friend who's struggling, or a family member. Like, all these choices and decisions, they come up. And aren't we also blind to how best to follow God in them? How to get the best outcome for ourselves or our loved one? I mean, we want security. We want wise vision. We want goodness and light and wholeness in our life. But the point is, we already lack those things. The path between us and our next destination is already one that we don't know. So, yes, this verse is about the ancient Israelites who needed God, who needed help, who needed rescue and guidance. But maybe it's also about me. I don't need physical rescue from exile where they did, but I need help. I need a guide on an unknown path. The world is full of rugged places that are between me and where I want to be. And maybe this verse is also about my spouse or kid or sibling or friend. And I pray for them to have a clear way to go and for them to get the help that they need through those dark and rugged times. I have a couple of people in mind, and maybe you do too. God isn't making us blind or calling us names, but God is having compassion on us in our blindness. Yes, we may be blind and we don't know the path. And isn't it good to have God to guide us on it? God who is willing to make the darkness into light and the rough places into plains. And oh, hey, doesn't that sound like the verse we studied? If you've been with us on our Isaiah journey, just a couple of chapters ago, about making the way smooth for God to come to us to help us. We read that passage, and it's a passage that's also quoted by the gospel writers as being about making the way for Jesus. Isaiah 40, beginning in verse 3. A voice is calling, clear the way for the Lord in the wilderness, make smooth in the desert a highway for our God. Let every valley be lifted up and every mountain and hill made low. And let the rough ground become a plain and the rugged terrain, is that rugged terrain again? A broad valley. Then the glory of the Lord will be revealed and all flesh will see it together, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken. Isaiah 43 through 5, again from the NASB. Well, in Isaiah 42:16, or that theme verse of my friend that I met, we learn that God is willing to do for Israel as Israel was supposed to do for God, prepare the way, smooth it out, because God is coming in person to be with Israel and to help them. And it's amazing that the help God offers us, offered Israel, offers us now, comes in the form of God coming to us, being present with us, being there. And God said God would prepare the way for the Israelites to make rugged places smooth so that God could help them get to where they needed to be. So this verse really does mean something to me too. God was with the ancient Israelites, but even more, God is with us in the person of Jesus. Jesus, the light of the world, is with me to make the darkness into light before me. And Jesus was the one that God said, prepare the way for. It was John the Baptist that it was described as doing that verse by the gospel writers. And so it means more than one thing. It meant something to the ancient Israelites. It meant something when John the Baptist was making a way for Israel, for Jesus to come to Israel. And it means something to me. I may be stuck in darkness, but God is going to guide me. So my new friend was contemplating needing to move to a new state, and he was used to trying to figure out everything ahead of time and stuck without a way to do that. And he and his wife were anxious and uncertain. You felt it, haven't you? I have. He said that God sent him this verse. He sent it through people, because doesn't God work that way so often? Two different people brought him this verse. He said God sent it to him to let him know that though he was blind to what was coming and the path that was unknown, that he and his wife, they could trust God to be with them and to make their way in front of them. It made me think about the uncertain paths that I'm anxious about and whether there are in front of me or someone I love, how God is still with us, ready to light up the darkness. It made me think about how I can trust God and how this is a great verse to pray for myself or someone else on a dark road. Thank you.